Welcome to Backbone Unlimited. My name is Matt Hartsky. In this episode, we're diving deep into one of the most exciting and frustrating months in all of Western elk hunting, September. For a lot of guys, September is the Super Bowl. The bugles, the crisp mornings, the velvet's off, the bulls are charged up, and the woods just feel electric. But here's the reality. A lot of hunters head into September thinking it's rut time, only to find themselves hiking blind, calling to empty drainages, or following sign that's already cold. Because while the promise of September gets everybody fired up, the success in September goes to the ones who understand the timeline, the terrain, and the real behavior of elk during this month. This episode is for the hunter who's tired of chasing shadows, who wants to stop hoping and start finding. We're going to break down exactly where bulls go, why they go there, and how you can put yourself in the right spot at the right time to create close range encounters consistently. Whether you've got a tag in Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, Utah, the fundamentals you're about to learn will help you locate bulls during all stages of the September season, from early staging to the peak rut chaos. So sharpen your pencils, charge your headlamp, and let's get into it. Let's talk about understanding September elk behavior and the rut timeline. If you want to find bulls in September, the most important thing to understand is this. September isn't one phase of elk behavior, it's several. The biggest mistake I see a lot of hunters make is treating the entire month like it's peak rut. It's not. Elk don't flip a switch on September 1st and start screaming their heads off. And unless you understand the natural buildup and shifts in behavior, you'll end up calling in circles while the real action is happening one ridge over. Now, there are three phases of September. Here's how I break down elk behavior throughout the month. Early September, let's say September 1st through the 10th, pre-rut staging. Bulls are coming out of bachelor groups, they're rubbing velvet, building dominance, and starting to shadow cow groups, but not aggressively. Most vocalization is light. Location bugles, soft chuckles, the occasional frustrated bark. Cows are still feeding heavy and often at higher elevation. Most bulls are still moving solo or in small, quiet bachelor groups. Mid-September, September 11th to 20th, pre-rut to peak rut transition begins. Bulls are now checking cows constantly. Satellite bulls are showing up more frequently. The herd bull dynamic starts to form. Dominant bulls begin rounding up cows and pushing them. Bugles increase, but they're often short and defensive, not always the classic screamer sounds. Bulls become more territorial and can be called in, especially with raking, cow calls, and early challenge bugles. In late September, the 21st through the 30th, peak rut has begun and will even fade out in some areas towards the end of the month into post-rut. Estrus peaks, cows are getting bred, bulls are most aggressive. Bugling is high, but calling tactics start to matter more. Overcalling can blow bulls out, especially if they've been pressured for weeks. Bulls begin to tire from chasing cows and may break off midday to bed hard and recover. Satellite bulls are going to be circling constantly. Herd bulls may respond more to cow calls than bugles depending on pressure. Let's talk about how this affects your game plan. You can't use the same approach on September 5th that you would on the 25th and expect consistent results. The timeline dictates where bulls bed, when they move, how vocal they are, what they'll respond to or ignore. Understanding these shifts lets you predict behavior rather than just reacting to it. And when you're a step ahead of a bull, your odds of success go through the roof. Here's a little bonus insight. You've got to watch the weather. Early September heat, cows might stay higher and feed at night. Mid-September snow, rut activity might spike earlier, or they might get quiet. Moon phase, it influences when elk are more active and how vocal they'll be during daylight. But more than anything, watch for pressure. If the area is loaded with bugles and boot tracks, even nut-crazed bulls will go quiet or move into the timber. We'll dive deeper into that later, but for now, remember, September is a sliding scale. You need to match your scouting and tactics to the bull's actual phase, not just 1 month on the calendar. Once you understand how bull behavior shifts through the month, the next step is knowing where they like to be during those shifts. Because bulls in September are not just wandering around aimlessly. They're choosing terrain based on feed, cows, cover, thermals, and security. If you want to find them fast, you need to think like a bull. That starts with reading the terrain the right way. Now, elevation shifts are going to happen during the September sweet spot. In early September, many bulls are still holding high, near summer range. They're coming off bachelor patterns, so expect them above 9,000 feet in a lot of areas. Think open parks, sparse timber pockets and shady benches just off the main ridges. As the month progresses and cows start to herd up and descend, bulls follow. You'll often find them moving into mid-elevation transition zones, that sweet spot between summer feed and rut bedding cover. Look for areas that are more like 7,500 to 9,000 feet in most of the central Rockies. These zones provide water sources, north-facing bedding cover, open parks or small meadows nearby, escape terrain close by. Think blowdowns, thick timber pockets, or broken cliffs. North-facing slopes and dark timber is where bulls hole up when they're done showing off. After a night of chasing cows and bugling at every noise in the canyon, bulls will often bed on north or northeast facing slopes with thick shaded timber. Why do they do that? Well, it's because these zones stay cooler longer and catch steady midday thermals. A big bull in September is thinking about 2 things when he picks a bed. Don't get caught by humans, don't get caught by predators. Same thing. Thick, broken timber with multiple escape routes, consistent wind, and a water source within a few hundred yards. That's bull heaven, especially during the heat of midday. If you're not hunting the north face during daylight, you're probably walking past them. Now, you're also going to want to pay attention to bench systems and side hill bedding. If there's one topography feature I scout relentlessly during September rut, it's the benches. Why? Because bulls don't bed on steep side hills unless they're being pressured. They want a semi-flat spot to lay down, chew their cud, and stay hidden. A bench on a north-facing slope with thick deadfall, water nearby, and visual break from above and below is the exact kind of place a herd bull will take his cows to rest. And here's the kicker. Satellite bulls will cruise above and below those benches, scent checking and trying to slip into those cows unnoticed. These zones become rut highways in mid to late September. Now, your edge habitat is super important, where the timber meets the meadow or where thick cover breaks into open glades is a major September pattern, especially early in the month. Bulls staging pre-rut activity, they love open meadows at dawn and dusk. The timberline just 50 yards back from those meadows. Secondary trails leading from cover to feed. These are high traffic zones even when bugling is minimal. Sign will be heavy. Rubs, fresh tracks, wallows, droppings, torn up dirt from sparring. Scout these zones at first and last light and mark anything that shows fresh use. Everybody wants to hunt the creeks and the wallows, but the smart hunter finds the seep. September bulls don't just drink, they wallow. And wallows are almost always on hidden springs, overflow channels, small pockets tucked into low swales near benches and travel corridors. Find those micro water spots, especially if they're near bedding and you're going to be in the zone. Game cameras, boot tracks, or steaming mud will tell you if you're too late. But if the area is unpressured, you might catch a bull slipping in midday, alone, and ready to defend it. The bottom line here is September bulls pick terrain with intention. If you're not reading elevation, slope, edge cover, and water access, you're playing guesswork. But once you learn to stack these features, the picture gets a lot clearer and the bulls get a lot easier to find. If your goal is to find bulls in September, then stop looking just for bulls and start looking for cows. I know that sounds backwards, but hear me out. By mid-September, the majority of bulls, especially the ones you're trying to kill, aren't just roaming randomly through the hills. They're following the cows, shadowing them, herding them, and defending them. If you'd like a whole video on how to find cows, check this one out up here that I made specifically about this topic. Because the cows dictate everything during the rut. They choose the elevation, they choose the feeding ground, and ultimately they determine where bulls are going to spend most of their time. Cows are creatures of habit. One of the biggest advantages you have as a hunter is that cows are extremely predictable, especially in September. They like the same elevation bands, the same types of feed, and the same bedding zones year after year if the pressure hasn't changed it. So if you found a drainage in early September that's holding 6 to 8 cows, you can bet it'll hold some kind of bull soon, and likely a herd bull as rut tension starts to ramp up. This is especially true for south-facing slopes in early morning, east-facing meadows with nearby benches, water access within several hundred yards, broken terrain where escape and visibility are easy for them. If you find multiple cow-calf groups and fresh sign, you're not far from action. Cows come first in the timeline. Here's a simple framework that works in most of the Central Rockies. In early September, cows are loosely grouped in summer feed zones, often near high elevation meadows with lush grasses and forbs. In mid-September, they begin moving down into traditional rut zones, transition terrain between bedding and feeding. In late September, herds stabilize. They've picked their zones and the dominant bulls are circling tight. This is when bugling really spikes. You want to locate cows early and then stay with them as the bulls start arriving. If you're too late, you're chasing ghosts. If you're early and patient, you're in the driver's seat. Now, let's talk about the sign that screams, cows were here. Sometimes you're glassing thick timber or heavy dark stuff and can't lay eyes on cows. That's where reading fresh sign matters. Track clusters in soft dirt, pine cones shredded from feeding behavior, midday droppings in open glades, meaning they felt safe enough to feed there late. Cow vocalizations, light mews, chirps, and assembly calls. If you're hearing that soft talk in the timber, stay alert. Bulls could be trailing right behind, especially satellites trying to sneak in. The more cows, the higher the risk and the reward. Here's something most hunters overlook. The more cows you find in one group, the more eyes, ears, and noses you're dealing with. That makes your approach harder, your calls more likely to get busted, and your margin of error razor thin. That's why a lot of times I don't recommend stalking into that thick timber during the midday nap time for those animals. There's just a lot of times there's too many eyes and ears and noses. But the payoff, more cows equals more bulls. A 15 cow herd might draw in a half dozen bulls. A lot of them are going to be circling and scent checking. Some will posture and stay silent. And if you're in the right zone, especially near bedding cover, you can pick one off before the chaos begins. Just remember, if you blow that group out, the entire mountain might go dead for days. So the bottom line here is find the cows, stay with the cows, read the cows. They are the nucleus of the September rut, and every smart bull and every smart hunter knows it. You can scout the perfect terrain, you can find cows, track elevation bands, and even hit the rut just right. But if you don't account for hunting pressure, everything else can fall apart. Pressure is the ultimate wild card in September elk hunting. It reshuffles bedding zones, silences bugles, and turns active drainages into ghost towns overnight. So if you want to consistently find bulls in September, you have to learn how to read pressure and adjust faster than the guys around you. What pressure looks like on the mountain is different from what you might think. You don't always need boot tracks to know a drainage has been blown up. Here are the signs I look for. Multiple fresh vehicle tracks at the same trailhead. Flattened grass or busted limbs limbs at glassing points or obvious campsites. Fresh flagging tape or, carved out markings on trees. Elk sign that's going cold, muddy wallows that are now dry, or heavy trails that suddenly vanish. Bugling activity that shuts off after daylight or never starts. Pressure isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just too many headlamps in the morning, or one guy who hiked too deep into a bedding zone 2 days in a row. And once that happens, those elk are either gone or locked down in places nobody's looking. Now, where do pressured bulls go? If you're hunting a spot with strong bugling one day and dead silence by day 3, don't assume the elk left the unit. More often than not, they just shifted terrain to dark timber-sided slopes, steep, broken terrain with no trail access, downhill bedding zones that most hunters never check, secondary drainages away from the main basins and trail systems, north-facing benches behind or below cow herds. Bulls that have been pressured will often stop bugling altogether during daylight, but they're still moving. They still want cows. They're still rutting. They just wait for dark or check cows silently from the downwind side. This is when hunting sign, terrain, and scent becomes more valuable than sound. How do we hunt around this pressure? There are 2 choices when pressure hits. Beat the pressure by getting to spots earlier, climbing higher, or glassing into terrain others are overlooking. Avoid the pressure by identifying pockets where elk are escaping to, even if there's less bugling. A few strategies that have worked for me over the years are to hunt the backside of the ridge that everyone's overlooking. Drop below the road. Most guys only go up. Target smaller pockets between hot drainages. Sometimes the bulls in those spots stay vocal longer. Hike in with a headlamp and glass in the dark. Find them before the noise starts. Shut up and listen. A single stick crack might mean a silent bull is working in. And here's a tip from hard lessons learned. Don't overcall in a pressured area. If bulls have already been screamed at for a week, aggressive bugles and constant cow calls just sound like another dude. Go light, go slow, and let your presence feel natural, not disruptive. Pressure doesn't mean your hunt is over. It just means the game has shifted. The bulls didn't disappear. They just stopped playing by your normal rules. So try to adapt faster, hunt smarter, and don't be afraid to go where the other guys won't. One of the biggest advantages you can give yourself as a September elk hunter is understanding when bulls move and where they move during those windows. You can scout the perfect zone, find the cows, and even slip past pressure. But if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you'll still go home empty-handed. September isn't about blind luck. It's about rhythm. Elk move in patterns, and when you understand those morning and evening rhythms, your chances of getting into bow range go way up. During morning hunts, try to capitalize on movement before bedding. Morning is my absolute favorite time to hunt elk in September. The bulls are active, the air is cool, thermals are usually stable, and the woods are alive. But it's also a narrow window. And here's what you have to understand. Bulls are often on the move at first light, especially satellites, scent-checking cow groups, or herd bulls pushing cows towards bedding. Your best window is from civil twilight until 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. depending on pressure, temperature, and cloud cover. When those thermals are typically still pulling downhill until mid-morning, you can slip in from below during those times, slipping in behind bugles without getting busted when you know that thermal is consistently pulling down. Now, where should you hunt in the morning? My favorite is travel corridors between meadows and bedding, old trails, saddles, creek bottom edges, ridges above bugling activity. Drop in once the thermals settle. Water adjacent to benches where bulls will pause to wallow before bedding. Your job in the morning, be close enough to the bedding zone to cut them off, but not so close that you blow them out. Think ambush over aggression. Now for evening hunts, we're talking about setup versus stalk. Evenings can be quieter, but they can also be gold if you play it right. Bulls often wait for the thermals to flip before they begin moving down from bedding to feed. That means the first 90 minutes of the evening sit can feel dead. until all of a sudden it isn't. Many hunters blow their evening opportunities by moving too much or calling too early, so be patient. Where should we hunt in the evening? Hunt those edge zones between bedding cover and meadows. Downwind finger ridges where bulls stage before stepping into the open. Known cow gathering zones near water or open glades. Evening hunts are often better for calling setups, especially if you're tucked into the edge of thick timber with good shooting lanes. Keep this in mind. If you hunt morning zones in the evening or vice versa, you're likely missing elk movement entirely. Match your location to the animal's behavior for that time of day. Now, midday, it can be super challenging, but it's not a waste of time. While this section is about mornings and evenings, don't sleep on midday movement, especially once the rut hits up, and especially if you have some good water in your area. Bulls, especially satellites, will sneak in to check cows while the herd bull is distracted or dozing. Solo bulls might wallow midday, especially in hot temps, and pressured elk might rebed several times between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. If you're staying out all day, focus on still hunting the downwind edge of known bedding zones, glassing into timber breaks with soft light and shade, shadowing fresh sign and staying silent. Midday is low odds, but not no odds, especially if you play the thermals right and move slowly. Just be aware that your chances of getting busted are very high and you don't want to blow those elk out. The bottom line here is you don't need to hunt all day, but you do need to hunt the right place at the right time. Understand morning thermals. Know when evening movement begins. Set up where elk are headed, not where they were. And above all else, be patient. The guy who waits 30 more minutes is often the guy who gets the shot. If you want to take this kind of strategy even deeper, you're invited to join Team Backbone Inner Circle. Team Backbone isn't just another hunting group. It's a no BS community built for those of us who train for this all year, physically, mentally, and tactically. Inside Team Backbone, you're going to get 20% off site-wide on all Backbone Unlimited apparel and gear, a member-only t-shirt shipped every single month, designs you can't get anywhere else, full access to the private digital vault packed with mindset training, hunt strategy, fitness programs, gear checklists, and exclusive video content, entry into our monthly gear giveaways, and direct access to me, text, call, email anytime with questions about your hunt, your training, or how to keep living relentless. We've got guys from every corner of the West in there, DIY hunters, seasoned elk guys, and weekend warriors who want to sharpen their edge and surround themselves with other hunters who take this seriously. And if you're one of the first 100 members, you're going to get the exclusive founding member shirt, never reprinted, never sold. It's a badge of honor and a reminder that this movement started with you. Head over to backboneunlimited.com to join the team. Thanks for being here. Until next time, train harder, hunt smarter, and never settle.